Hi, this is Sam Botstein for TraktorSkills.com. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube for all of our tractor tutorials, and check us out at TraktorSkills.com. In today's tutorial, we're going to take a look at the Mulholland Drive and digital lo-fi effects. I personally find these effects to work best together. I did a similar Maschine tutorial recently in which we took a look at using a drive and compression effect along with a bit reduction and sample rate reduction effect, all within Maschine sampler. I'll post a link to that in the description below. You can do the same kind of design here on a simple drum loop, all within Traktor. It works very differently. The effects are much more intense and much more sensitive, and there's considerably less fine control. There are just as many controls over the sound, but they just don't have the same kind of resolution. So what I would recommend doing is loading up Mulholland Drive ahead of digital lo-fi. You can't see it. There, you can see it. Here, real quickly, you can see that I have this deck being sent to both effects 1 and 2, and I have these effects in single mode, and they're both in insert mode. Here's what our eventual sound could sound like. This sounds like a really bass-heavy, poorly sampled, dirty, cool break. With both of these effects off, you can hear that this break is actually very clean. This is fine because we have a lot of opportunity here to go in and destroy it. Taking a look first at Mulholland Drive, I'm going to turn the dry wet all the way up so you can hear what the effect is doing without any of the dry signal. Mulholland Drive is a little bit of a complicated effect. Our first knob here, tone, actually requires a little bit of the feedback to have any effect. Let me demonstrate that really quick. So you can see that turning the tone knob with the feedback all the way down isn't going to get you anywhere. This feedback minus button only passes uneven harmonics. This way you don't get a lot of harmonic sound. This can work to your advantage if you are trying to mix harmonically or emphasize a key that does not necessarily go with one of the decks or one of the loops you're using or whatever. I almost always use the Mulholland Drive effect with feedback minus on, but explore all the different tones. Basically, feedback minus allows you to get twice as many different sounds out of the effect, and it's very cool. The reset sets everything back to this position, or snapshot. This is useful to note because when you turn this effect back on, and in this reset position, you won't hear any of it because the dry wet is all the way down. And when you start to turn the dry wet up, it's pretty crazy, even not passing any audio. According to Traktor's documentation, with the feedback down, the effect behaves like a typical tube distortion. I find with just the drive a little bit up, you start to get some interesting sort of bass-heavy, overdriven, cool sounds to use. This sounds very cool on 808 loops, as well as loops like this, which are acoustic, but very clean. I like to use just a touch of feedback with the feedback minus control on, and then dial in with the tone control exactly the kind of effect that I want to use. In the manual, it'll tell you that this effect works best on music that has gaps in it, because the self-oscillations of the feedback control develop in the empty parts of the music. Hopefully you can hear there that we are indeed hearing the most interesting stuff from the feedback when the drum hits are not hitting. In the middle of them, in the emptiness, we're hearing the most. So once you find a setting that you like, you can ease off of the dry wet a little bit. Of course, if you were mixing live, you wouldn't stop, do a sound design tutorial, and go back into what you're doing, and you wouldn't necessarily turn Mulholland Drive all the way up as it's very sensitive. But I would recommend, before engaging the digital lo-fi, unless you have a nice, preset thing that you have all set up ahead of time, I would start with the dry wet higher and then bring it lower. So maybe if you're playing with it on 20%, I would subtly pull it down to 15 or even 10, where you'll still get a lot of the sound, but the digital lo-fi effect is just going to really kick into high gear. Mulholland Drive is really overkill for most situations. However, with the dry wet up just a little bit like this, you can get some nice effects out of it while still hearing your dry audio through. Now looking over at digital lo-fi, we're actually leaving the Mulholland Drive effect on, and we're going to first start in its reset position, which we will hear nothing, of course, so the effect isn't on. Then once we turn it on, we won't hear a difference either, because there isn't any sample rate reduction or bit reduction going on. This SMTH control actually smooths the sample rate reduction, giving a smoother result. So it will only work in conjunction with the sample rate knob. So if we have the sample rate down, no matter the other positions of the other knobs, it's not going to make a difference. This is just like the tone control on Mulholland Drive. Okay, so the bit reduction is pretty self-explanatory. As you turn on the effect, it's going to reduce the sample rate. You can start to hear a little bit of a crunch as the effect turns on, and as you get all the way down, it turns into insanity, and it'll probably be time to mix out the song at that point. The sample rate reduction is interesting as it pretty much introduces aliasing immediately. However, there is a huge variety of tones that you can achieve through using the sample rate smoothing control in conjunction with it. I personally really like the snare tone we're getting here, with a little bit of Mulholland Drive and a little bit of sample rate and bit reduction, with a lot of smoothing on digital lo-fi. Now, of course, we have digital lo-fi all the way turned up in this case. We turn it back down to, about a 50-50 dry wet. We're still getting that really heavy snare that I was looking for, and we're hearing a little bit of the dry audio passing through. Really quick, I'm going to show you what these settings on digital lo-fi would sound like with Mulholland Drive turned all the way down. So here you can hear that we're basically getting the most interesting stuff out of the low frequency content. That is, the kicks. So try these two effects together and let me know what other combinations you might use digital lo-fi and Mulholland Drive in. Until next time, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and check us out at traktor.com.